We got a big game in the Serie A tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Two up and coming Italian managers. Two managers that last year exceeded expectations. They impressed the world. They earned a step up. Raffaele Palladino going from Monza to Fiorentina. Thiago Motta going from Bologna to the mighty Juventus. Now this is going to be a blockbuster game in my opinion. Why? Because these teams are similar but at the same time very different. They share, as crazy as this may sound, they share the same weaknesses. When you watch both teams, I feel like they can both improve in the same department. But when it comes to the football, when it comes to the principles, they are completely different. They are completely different. And I feel like this is why this will be a very exciting game. And hopefully it lives up to my expectations. But before I dive into everything, if you're new, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Make sure to hit the like. That helps the channel grow. But I always love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Let me know your prediction. Let me know how you think this game is going. Let me know how you think Motta's doing, how Palladino's going. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, now let's look at the things that make Fiorentina and Juventus relatively similar with one another. The one thing that's crystal clear, both teams off the ball are one of the best in the Italian division. Juventus sit top of the food chain. 10 clean sheets this season in the Serie A. Motta has built a very resolute backline. We're talking Gatti, Kalulu, signing of the season, Bremer at the start of the season. His contributions will not be forgotten. But Juventus have shown defensively they are strong, they are compact, they're very good at putting out fires. Fiorentina, 7 clean sheets. Not too far behind. Now let's look at touches in the opposition box. Both teams very similar. Juventus 367 touches in the opposition box. Fiorentina 358. Big chances created. What do these attacking players do in possession? Juventus 39 big chances created. Fiorentina 36 big chances created. Now the weakness that these teams share in the Serie A, and I feel like this is a department Motta can definitely improve with Juventus. Palladino can definitely improve with Fiorentina. And it's the pressing system, the pressing structure. How well do these two teams win the ball in the opposition half? And as crazy as it may sound, Juventus, who top so many of the metrics and they're in the top half, Juventus are in the bottom half. This season in the Serie A for the press, Juventus are ranked 17th. 17th when it comes to winning possession in the opposition half. They win it on average 2.9 times per 90. That's not good. I'll be honest with you guys, that is not good at all. Fiorentina, not too far behind. They win the ball in the opposition half on average 3 times per 90. 2.9, 3 times, it's the same thing. That is a weakness that both of these teams share. But now, let's look at what makes these teams so different in principles, so different in style of play. Number one. And these differences will paint the perfect picture for you guys as to how these teams set up, how they play, and what is the main difference between Palladino and Thiago Motta. Number one, let's look at the pass success rate. So when the teams are trying to play their football, trying to play out of the back, which team is more efficient than the other? Juventus sit at the top, 89.7%. Fiorentina are ranked in 10th, 83.5%. Now let's look at the average possession. How long do these teams retain and hold on to the ball? Juventus once again sit top of the food chain in the Serie A with 60.8%. They are the best team in the Serie A that retaining the ball. Fiorentina 53.1%. Massive difference in these two teams when it comes to retaining the ball. But now the question is why? Why is there a big difference between Fiorentina and Juventus? Because Fiorentina are what I like to call a very vertical team that favours the long ball. When you favour the long ball, it comes at the cost of ball retention. Fiorentina are ranked in the top 5 in the Serie A this season for long balls. On average, 27 attempts per 90. Juventus don't even hit the top 10. Juventus don't even enter the top 10 for long ball. So what does that tell you? Juventus favour to play their game on the ground. Fiorentina favour to play their game in the air. They favour the long ball. But why? Now, Raffaele Palladino this season has taken Fiorentina from a team that was in 8th last year, and at the moment they're sitting 5th. A team that under Vincenzo Italiano last year, they were averaging what? 1.8 points per 90. Fiorentina this season are averaging 2.1. But how? He's found a play style that plays to their strengths. Why? Because the one thing about this Fiorentina team is they love the long ball. And Juventus have to keep an eye on it. Why? Because, funnily enough, it's a player with a point to prove, Moises Kean. He is the perfect target man for that Fiorentina team. He is the outlet. He is the player that runs the channels. Why? Because physically he's very gifted. He's strong. He's mobile. He's got that burst of acceleration. And he's a player that's a willing runner off the ball. But what helps him? What helps him is the fact that he occupies the run centrally, but then the flanks. This is a Fiorentina team that's experimented this year from a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-2-1. But the wing backs / the fullbacks, Dodo and Gossens, they run up and down, up and down, up and down. You can see from these clips, when Fiorentina go long, they don't just go long for one player. They go long for 4 or 5 players. And for anybody that's watched them this year, you could see they get a lot of joy. I remember the game against Atalanta, the amount of times they caught Gasperini's back 3 off guard. Ball over the top to Moises Kean. He might win the flick on for Copani to run onto. The game against Milan. Moises Kean. Tomori, they couldn't get next. They couldn't get near Moises Kean. He was winning his duels. Fiorentina love the long ball and they commit a lot of bodies forward. Why? Because when Moises Kean does win the header, guess who wins the second ball? When Moises Kean loses out on a duel, guess who's there to recover the ball in a more offensive position? There's going to be a heavy focus on Juventus' midfield tomorrow. Juventus need to make sure when the ball goes long, they win the second ball. If they don't win the header, they need to make sure they win the second ball. Because if Fiorentina win the second ball, that's where their primary football comes to their strength. Now, touching on that, both of these teams on the ball set up in a 3-2-5. Fiorentina at times 3-4-2-1. And both teams drop into the 4-2-3-1 off the ball. But the difference between the two is how risky they are in possession. Fiorentina 3-2-5. The 5 offensive players all run. They all make vertical runs. They all run in behind. They all engage in the air. They all want the ball in the space. They want to run into the space. And you can see from the photos, as soon as Fiorentina have the ball at the back, they launch it long. Keep an eye on how many times David De Gea will launch it long. Juventus 3-2-5, but rather than having the players just running forwards, running into space, Juventus 3-2-5, but football on the ground. You can see from the photos, the players close to one another. They're not charging into space. No, if anything, they're making sure that the space is small. It's tight. Why? So they can bounce the ball off one another. Every time Locatelli has the ball, he's got a player to his left. He's got a player to his right. He's got Dusan Vlahovic in front of him. 2 teams that set up in a similar way, but the principles are so different. Looking at it from the outside, I feel like based off this season, Palladino's Fiorentina players suit the long ball game more than the Juventus players suit the total football approach, because Juventus have shown this season they will retain the ball on average 61%. Sometimes they struggle to break down the opposition. Sometimes when you need that X factor in central areas, it's lacking. And there's a reason why Juventus are not where, in my opinion, they should belong at the top of the Serie A. But this is going to be a game of 2 contrasting play styles of similar systems. Who do I think will come out on top? I'm expecting it to be a game full of excitement, a game that's very end-to-end. Because when Fiorentina do win the ball, they will go long. But when Juventus win the ball, they will be calm, composed, and they will try and capitalize on the gaps that Fiorentina leave from pushing their players forward. If I was to give a prediction, in my opinion, I could really see a high-scoring draw between these 2 teams. Because as much as they might have their own strengths, they share the same weaknesses. But time will tell. Now, if you're new, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll catch you guys on another one.